Welcome to the Sports Geek Podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who wrote the intros while flying across country, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, this is a special Sports Geek podcast. What I'm going to do in this podcast is review Mary Meeker's Internet Trends for 2017 presentation that she gave at the Code Conference. She produces this every single year. And so for this podcast, I'm going to walk my way through what I think and what I took away from the report, the Internet Trends report for 2017, and we'll go from there. So if you're listening for the first time, this is a little bit weird that I'm sort of walking through some slides. It's a little bit like a keynote, but it's not. You would have been told in the intro, but my name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and this is going to be replayed on the Sports Geek podcast, but also this video of me walking through the slides. I most likely will be uploading this, and you may be watching it on the Sports Geek Facebook page, which you can find at facebook.com/sportsgeek. So I'm going to run through this really, really quickly as much as I can. There's over 300 slides. I'm not going to get to them all. I do strongly suggest you see I think it's a 30-minute wrap that Mary Meeker gave, really rattling through a lot of the slides at the Code Conference. There's a YouTube clip there. That'll also be in the show notes. This will be sportsgeekhq.com/152, I believe. Yes, 152. So yeah, without further ado, we'll get started. So this is, as you can see there, you can download it either at Kleiner Perkins site, kpcb.com/internet trends, or as I said, you can get them from Sports Geek. We'll have a link to the slideshow and the ability to download the PDF all there. So looking overall, like I said, 350 slides around global internet trends. Looking at online advertising, I love this section about online advertising because it really lends itself to how can the sports industry learn from what's happening in commerce, how are they making more money, what and where is the advertising dollar going to go. So it'll definitely change the way that sports teams are selling their online inventory and how they can sell their online inventory. Then there's a big section on interactive games and gaming and esports, and I really want to dive into that because as you've heard, if you've been listening to the podcast, esports is a really developing area. It's something that I'm very much interested in, and it's something that I think will provide a lot of different crossover for sports, especially as we're seeing a lot of teams dive into the space. And then I want to dive into the changes to the media, because again, the changes to the media will affect the world of sports and how that will. And then I'm going to briefly touch over the cloud stuff. And probably I'll stop it there. But there's some really good stuff in the second half of the report, especially around where China's moving, India's moving, and some stuff about healthcare and stuff. So we'll see how much we can get through. I'm just looking at the clock so I can sort of have an idea of the timing of it all. So let's get started. This is who produced the report, looking at some of the global internet trends. 3.4 billion people are on the internet, and I think the key takeaway, it's flat growth at 10% year on year. I think the big takeaway, and I think it was only just the last day or two, that Facebook has announced that they've got 2 billion users. So that's a massive number. The fact that Facebook has 2 billion of the 3.4 billion people that are on the internet. So that's my main takeaway. You can see the growth of global internet users. Steadily growing. The year on year is slightly plateaued at 10%, but still on the uptick. And you'll sort of see why China and India are still, especially India, is very much a growing market. Smartphones continue to grow in the usage. It's slowed a little bit. I think the biggest thing here for me, again, looking at I'm trying to do my best to describe the graphs. The Android has just continued to grow and grow and grow as the major sector of the smartphone shipments. iOS is still there, but Android is the far and away the dominant leader in that space. So gone are the days of I've got to build out an app and we'll just do it in iOS. If you're only doing that, then you're really leaving a big chunk of the market underexposed. So they were the main things from mine. Obviously, the user base. Then I think the other thing is I guess where this is slide 9. So I'll try to remember to put the references in for the slides. So if you are sort of playing along at home, this one is about time spent per adult per day with digital media in the US from 2008 to 2016, and so now it's up to 5.6 hours a day engaged with digital media, and over 3 hours a day is mobile. So over the past couple of years, it has been more and outpacing desktop, but it is that gap is continuing to grow, and again, mobile is becoming no longer the second screen; it's becoming the first screen. The section on online advertising and commerce. And the bit I love about this section and sort of working in digital overall and the advertising space is that it is getting better, increasingly measurable and actionable, as Mary puts it on page 10, and it's completely driven by mobile. So if you look at the accelerating growth of online advertising, it's again up 22% year on year, and again mobile is where all the growth is. If you're looking at the graph 2011, 2012 onwards, desktop advertising has plateaued or even now dropped. And it's the amount that is, 73 billion last year in the US alone. Most of that, half of that was mobile. So we're seeing more money pour into the online advertising space. Why is this important to you as a sports executive? Well, you do have to sell all those digital rights, and the fact that there is more money in that space will obviously give you opportunities to sell your digital advertising and your digital assets, but it also means it becomes a more competitive market. So, for me, mobile is definitely powering the ad space, and I think a lot of sports teams are starting to see that, in that they've been rolling out their MRECs and their advertising on their desktop and still haven't quite caught up to how they would go about selling their mobile when they are seeing 60-70% of their traffic being in mobile. So we need to make sure that the sponsorship commercial relationships that you've got are starting to move into that space, because that's where the money is going from an advertising point of view. So there's some of the key things, and I think slide 13, which sort of says, which goes about the number of the percentage of time spent on media and the advertising spending. It still shows an opportunity that the ad spend doesn't quite match the time spent. So everything else seems to match. TV, 38% time spent and 38% ad spend, but the piece that's over-indexed, print, there's currently more ad spend on print that deserves the time, and mobile is underrepresented. So the savvy advertisers will start moving more and more money to mobile advertising. Page 14, internet spend versus TV ad spend. This is the one that gets Don Draper to shake his head. It is predicted that later this year that internet advertising spend will surpass TV ad spend within the next 6 months globally. So the lines will cross, and TV will never get that first position back. So again, it's a great opportunity for sports and sports rights holders and teams, especially because they're not the ones selling the TV ads. They are the rights holders, the people who've bought the rights. Now, where this graph is a bit of a doom and gloom is if the TV ad producers, the ESPNs of the world, the Channel 7s of the world, that have bought the rights and have paid these premium for sports fees, if they're not going to get their money back, then that's when there may be that course correction in the rights fees if they don't get that if they don't get that revenue back. But it also presents a really good opportunity for all things, for things like over the top and digital only products and those kind of things, as that's where the advertising dollars will be. From an advertising point of view, slide 15 could not be more compelling. It looks at how Google and Facebook own 85% and rising share of internet advertising growth in the USA. Now, these numbers will look very similar across the board in different parts of the world. But from 2015 to 2016, Google's advertising revenue went up 20%. From 2015 to 2016, Facebook's went up 62%. So they own 85% of the internet advertising market. So again, that's where the money is going. That's why, as a team, you need to understand these products, understand how to leverage these products potentially for your own assets, and then also, and we'll look at it later with the e-commerce piece, how to use these products to generate revenue, because that's why the money is flowing through there. The equation on slide 15 around ad measurability being triple-edged, and Mary does explain this quite well in her keynote. When things are measured, sometimes people don't like what they see, and users don't always like the data collected. And so it's a matter of, advertisers overall, sponsors and general advertisers are still having trouble understanding how to best gauge social. So yes, there's that straight line, social advertising. So there is that straight line of, hey, yes, we put out a ticketing offer and we got tickets and we sold tickets, and that's the return. But then there's other metrics like engagement and amplification and brand awareness. And at the moment, it's still developing. So you've got you've got products and reports like Simply Measured and stuff like that are saying this is how you can measure your ROI. It's still one of the top challenges in social media marketing, and slide 17 sort of definitely doubles down on that point. But the other side of it is, as a marketer and as someone who is selling advertising and reporting back on advertising, you've got to be able to tell all those different stories. You've got to be able to tell to a sponsor, this is what your brand awareness was, this is how we amplified your brand in a social space, as well as here's the data we collected, and as well as here's the engagement that we showed. So it's, you can either complain about that triple edge and the fact that there's multiple ways to slice and dice it, or you can sort of use that to your advantage and tell multiple stories. The page, the slide on page 18 around ad blocking. Ad blocking grows. I'm going to say the phrase to describe a lot of these charts up and to the right. So if we're looking at the desktop ad blocking software users and we're looking at the mobile ad blocking software users, they are very much spiking up and to the right. A lot of growth in that space. Now, as ad blocking penetration grows, then a lot of ads will not be seen. And so for me, the opportunity for that is the rise of native content and the ability to embed advertising and advertorial into your content. And so for me, that's going to be a real key one for sports. Ad blocking software won't be able to remove a product that's in a video and those kind of things. So developing more products like that, that's where advertisers will go, because the banner ad will be blocked. There's a high propensity of that being blocked down the track, and so the more sophisticated sponsors and partners will be looking for something far more integrated. So, looking at some of the leading ad platforms, and on slide 20, Mary sort of highlights the big three, and it's added Snapchat with Snap Ads coming online soon for their self-serve type of advert. For me, they all look very similar. Facebook has taken a lot of the setup and structure that Google AdWords had. Snap looks very similar in the same. And for me, the main takeaway for slide 20 around the ad products, whether it be Facebook, Snap, Google, Twitter, if you want to still play with those ads, is get into the product, start understanding them early, because as they evolve, they'll become more and more complex and a little bit harder and harder to understand. So one of the advantages I've had, one with my geek background to understand these products, has been to get in early and see them evolve, see them fall over a little bit, test new products as they come out, new products normally get a push along anyway. But yeah, for mine, when I see these ad platform slides, they look exactly the same. So if you start understanding how you can deliver results with Facebook by setting up your reporting, understanding how to track it, setting up your plumbing, then it's not that hard to say how do we get it to work in Google? How do we get this? How do we trial and test this in Snapchat? So that's my main takeaway for that. Slide 21 talks about how the success that a lot of e-commerce retailers have had using Google product listing ads. So they are ads that direct people directly to a product to buy. And, this is something when I've gone to conferences like Retail Global that e-commerce retailers are saying is their bread and butter. I'm not seeing enough of Google product listing ads set up in the world of sports. Merchandise and the sales of merchandise still remains one of the most underutilized revenue opportunities for sports, and it is doing some of this stuff that the e-commerce retailers that are fighting tooth and nail for every single dollar, they are doing these things. So again, check out slide 21, look up Google product listings. It is a thing that you've got to do the work and load in all your products, but then when people are looking for your jerseys, your hats, you'll be found. The retailers that are specialising selling your merchandise are doing it, and your fans would most likely prefer to buy them from you if they can. Some really good stuff in this e-commerce stuff around Pinterest, driving people around targeted pins and product discovery and people testing that out. The one I definitely do like the one on slide 23 around Facebook Messenger and where conversational transactions are going to happen. And so again, that starts becoming what's your bot strategy? Are you going to build out a bot? What's that bot going to do? We saw the Golden State Warriors build out a bot around the playoffs and engaging people and getting people to tune into the game or go to the game, which is great because you have a single function and a bot. It's very hard to get a bot to do everything. But then as that starts developing, when someone says, I would like to buy a jersey, the ability for Facebook Messenger and your bot to say, oh, here it is, click the button, buy now, those kind of opportunities, those contextual ads will be new and feel a bit of surprise and delight at first until fans and general users start realizing they're all ads. So again, I think there's that early adopter opportunity if you sort of start understanding the space and seeing how it might work. I haven't seen much of this. I must admit the goal-based bidding ads for Snapchat around driving user action, which is they've got an example here from a Snap Gatorade ad campaign, getting the people to play a little game. Again, keeping an eye on how bigger brands. Now, Gatorade probably paid a lot of money to get into the Snapchat feed to drive this. But what normally happens with a lot of these platforms and a lot of these ad products, they then get rolled out into a wider audience and become self-serve. So this may be something that might be available to sports down the track. So that's the Snapchat Gatorade ad campaign you can check out. So a whole bunch of stuff definitely around the local ads I'm not going to dive into. I do want to dive into this slide on slide page 26. And it's really around the advertising that's happening around video, and what type of advertising is working and what type of advertising people are finding positive or negative. So things like mobile app reward, social click to play, skippable pre-roll, all had positive sentiment against them. When we are seeing a lot of the ones that have a lot of negative in banner autoplay, pre-roll, mobile app pop-up, they all had 79% or more negative feedback. And so again, this is where the sports world needs to be keeping an eye on what's happening in the app world and in the video world to say, well, what's the best way for us to monetize videos in our apps or on our desktop? And so this is the challenge for for the video players and the tech players in the space. So people like Chris Wagner from New Line and the Bright Coves and that of the world to say what is the infrastructure we're going to be putting over our ads to allow monetization. Still looking forward to seeing how the Facebook ad video stuff sort of rolls out. Dropping an ad in the middle of a video, how's it going to work? Is it going to jar? I think this is going to be something that's going to be where a lot of the monetization for sports content's going to come. We're seeing more and more teams build more and more sports video, more and more video. And so to have that video, we can't just keep putting up, we're putting a 15-second pre-roll, and then you get to watch a 10-second video. Fans will just tune out on that. It will continue to be a negative experience. And if it's a negative experience, they'll stop watching. So I think, there's a lot of takeaways from page 26, definitely. And also just the way that apps start serving ads. And that's pretty much what slide 27 is talking about, the different ways that ads can be done. And there is a lot of development in this space, both with ads that get overlaid on video and or integrated with apps as layers. And so I think we'll start seeing this, and we're seeing it already, more and more players that are coming in that are layers that can be put over apps. So the app developers don't have to build all of this infrastructure. I think that's where the opportunity is. Now, whether they plug into the big app players, whether it be BAM, Yinscam, those kinds, or whether it's something that is simple as, we're just going to put this ad activation over it, whether it be geo or something that overlays your current app. I think that's something that's going to develop. I think that's where a lot of the more effective advertising is going to be in-app. Going to move forward through a couple of these, and I really want to just dive in on some of the stuff that Mary Meeker sort of put in of advertising in inefficiency, increasingly exposed by data. The whole concept of right ad, right time, right place. Now, when it was driven by algorithms, Google AdWords, launched in year 2000, has been driven by user type words. Someone types in a word, then Google will show you ads that are relevant to that word, and that's what people buy. That's Google AdWords in a nutshell. And if you look at Google's business and its market cap, and in this case, on page 32, it's listed as 679 billion market cap. And again, the graph is up and to the right, and that's been built on AdWords. But now what's happening is images are starting to become the right place, right time. And so Snapchat and its ads are being driven by user uploaded input, not typing in words, but images that you're putting up. And that's where, slide 34 is where that's what's driving its market capitalization now, 25 billion. And so I really like the fact that there's a few things around images. So Ben Silverman, Pinterest founder, discusses on page 35, a lot of the future of search is going to be about pictures instead of keywords. So, that is, hey, I'm going to take a picture, and what can you tell me from that picture? Not, I'm going to type something in, and what can you tell me? That's one change. There's another one that's changing a little bit later we'll get into, but yeah, so the ads are evolving to that. And so how are retailers and big brands starting to understand that, fans and customers are sharing content on social? There's this user-generated content, UGC. You'll see that a lot through this report. How are they using it? And again, I love the idea of user-generated content and redistributing and driving engagement. Now, on page 38, it talks about Ben & Jerry's using user-generated content. And what we're seeing is more and more brands, rather than them set up a photo shoot and shooting all of their ice creams, they're just getting their fans to do it and then asking them and reusing that content and potentially paying the fans or the influencers and using it as a content play. This has been really effective in the world of sport. I think there's a little bit more leeway in sport to amplify fan content. Fans don't normally put their hand out asking for money when their favourite sports team shares their content. So I think there's a real opportunity in this space. it's one that definitely works, for Instagram, and it is working for brands. And paying a influencer or a fan money in gift cards or even just cold hard cash is working far more effectively than a brand like Qatar Airways or Red Bull or BMW going and briefing an agency to go to a photo shoot. So they're doing a lot of that brand sourcing. That's something that's happening a lot in sports already. And then I think the next one is, the one that's really obvious from a sports point of view is the play around influencers and how they can impact followers and drive engagement. And so for sports, there's two kinds of influencers. There's your athletes. Your athletes are influencers. They are going to share the content and get the engagement. The fans are following the players first. It's very much becoming an athlete-driven sports landscape. You can see that with the big players of Ronaldo and Messi and the like, where they've got millions of fans. So I think that's something that, again, how you engage your athletes, how you embed them into your story, how you seed some of your content with them, is really important. And some of it is we'll let them do their own thing and we'll wear the afterglow. But it is something that the biggest influences in the world are athletes first, and I'll probably say entertainers second. So a few of the things around images is the fact that, and this is where AR is going to kick in. Around, I definitely think what Snap's doing. I think Instagram obviously doing a lot of copying of what Snap's doing, so that geolocated images, the stuff that's happening in Google Lens, that where you'll just take a photo of something and then the Google reviews will come up. The AR stuff that's going to start understanding whole scenes and getting more context from images, and to the point where some of the patent stuff that Snapchat has already put forward to be able to go, it's recognizing a photo, it's recognizing an object, it's recognizing that you've got a coffee cup, and we'll put an ad for a coffee brand on there. So that's page 45, and the stuff around the image recognition is just going to get better and better. So they'll know that you've taken a photo, they'll have the geolocation, and the ad serving that will be able to be put in there from a contextual point of view will be right on. And so again, if we're looking at it from a sports point of view, how does that fit for stadiums? How can stadiums better leverage that? How can that potentially, the conundrum or the challenge of app developers for a stadium are always doing things like wayfinding. Potentially think an app like Snapchat might be able to do a bunch of the wayfinding, because it'll start recognizing things and be able to tell people to go to a certain place. That's the type of stuff that's coming in the platforms. But then it's also, as the technology develops, that will be able to be stripped out of the platforms and put into club apps or stadium apps and those kind of things. The other challenging bit, and I think the opportunity, if we're looking at slide 46, is voice-based mobile platforms. So we started off with user-typed input. Google made a bucket load of money from it. We have the founder of Pinterest saying it's all about images, Snapchat diving in on images, and along comes voice, Google Assistant, Alexa, all of these things, Siri, are all now going to be the first place you search. So the requests and the way that it starts understanding our natural language is going to be so important. So we're going to have to start having an idea of what is our voice strategy. What have we got? What skills have we set up for Amazon Echo? What content are we going to have available for Echo Show? So some of these things, to have an understanding, at least understanding the use cases that are available. If you look on page 47, the number of skills that have been loaded into Amazon Echo, it's now at 12,000. And that's in not even 18 months. So, and the install base is now just over 10 million for Amazon Echo. So the thing is, again, where does what you need where are your goals fit into this ecosystem when people ask? So that's the main. They're the main things from those slides. There's a whole bunch of stuff on machine learning and some really good examples of the different types of ads that are going to be available, and definitely how social media can do customer service and the like. That I'm going to skip over because I really want to dive in on some of the different things. But yeah, some really good examples around different ways that retailers are selling and merchandising and doing offline and online engagement, and that kind of thing. So again, download the slides and have a look. I'm going to sort of just wrap up the e-commerce piece in that, from slide 60, 65. People are buying more stuff. People are ordering more packages. Unboxing is now the top 5 unboxing channels, has 33 million subscribers. Unboxing. So it's now becoming entertainment. Have you unboxed your latest kit, your latest jersey? Have you done a video that does that? A phrase that I like to use a lot on the podcast, steal with pride. How can you take this content that is super popular and convert it and make it applicable for a sports content? So there's a whole bunch of things in here. I think Mary actually did this around, talking about e-commerce and Amazon and the fact that Amazon's opening stores. This was actually done before Amazon went and bought Whole Foods. So there's a whole bunch of slides around Walmart buying Jet.com, and it's diving further in. But the beast that is Amazon, the fact that Amazon is the number one leading private label supplier of baby wipes and batteries. It is just that bigger beast. Online sales, e-commerce, 15% year on year. Again, I still believe it's a major underserved market for the sports industry. The Amazon is the beast, and there's some of the things from an online advertising point of view. The second sort of half I want to sort of dive into is the slides around from slide 80 onwards around the area of gaming and the impact that gaming has had on the internet and continues to have on the internet, and then diving into esports. So to get things, I guess, underway, to look at the big numbers, global interactive gaming, it's becoming mainstream, it's evolving, and it's still early days. Like, they're the key things. And there's 2.6 million gamers. And there was only 100 million in 1995. So just that growth. I love this slide on page 82 around the gaming evolution. So as Moore's Law is that processing power will continues to double and prices keep going down. That's the cliff notes of Moore's Law. And it started with one-player arcade, two-player consoles, 2+ players consoles and LAN. So that's how the tech evolved. And then, and Zuckerberg's law, which describes exponential growth of online social networks, so everyone keeps sharing, is going from million players of online network to millions of players being spectators in esports. So the fact that so many people are using it, going from the solo version of gaming, playing Pong, backwards and forwards, knocking a ball back, 45 years later, thousands of people in arenas, millions of people watching online. So that's the 45 years of gaming overall in one slide 82. I know I'll be using this slide often. The thing is, with Gen X and millennials, they've been gamified since birth, whether it's playing Pong or Pac-Man or Mario Brothers, John Madden football, EA Sports, Minecraft, Pokemon, League of Legends, Candy Crush. Over time, they've grown up with games. They don't need to be taught how to do games, and the revenue just keeps growing. Slide 84 talks about the interactive gaming revenue estimates. These are just estimates in billions. Asia Pacific is the leading region with 47 billion in 2016, and so it continues to grow. North America is second at 25. It does show that Asia Pacific is the hub of gaming. I know Australia will have a small drip drip in that bucket, but is definitely everyone north of Australia, in the Asian region. But what I did really like, and I think it's a bit of an eye-opening slide, was gamers are all ages. So the idea that gamers are all under 21 in darkened rooms playing games, that's not the case. As it was said before, that Gen X and millennials grew up with gaming. The gamer demographics, is changing, and there is a big chunk of gamers in that 80 to 50, and there's a big chunk of gamers that are over, over 35 and older. So it is all ages. It's not the classic younger under 20, under 22 sort of demographics. That's slide 85. So some of these these slides will all be in the show notes, but some of these I will share along with this. And then the other thing from a demographics point of view is that it's female gamers are represented, but they do play different games, from a casual game to a more hardcore, first person, that kind of first person shooter and that kind of thing. But they are representative. And then from slides 85 onwards, Mary sort of goes through how gaming can optimize learning, and there's some really great stuff around how you can learn from losing, whether it be playing Pac-Man, you lose a life, you come back, you fail, you start again. So again, it starts teaching that try again experience. It explains trial and error. And I'm going to skip over these. And again, you can dive in, but it teaches strategy, both short form and long form, and management of time and resources, and tracking things to the end, and the ability to manage progress, and concepts like leveling up that we remember from Candy Crush, to playing by yourself and competing against yourself, to competing against others, to understanding how systems work, and but also understanding things like structured play. So watching how games play, you can break the rules, but there is consequences, those kind of things. So there's a whole bunch of, I guess, education that's happening in gaming, and teaching a lot of things that people overall need to learn. And so there's a on slide 98, it talks about teammates. It talks about learning and working with others. So again, some of those cases around, the debate, and I don't think it's a debate, but is esports a sport? All of these things say it's a sport. If you're learning and working with other in a team, supporting your teammates, that's what sport is. The fact that it's being done through a controller and that kind of thing, and doesn't involve grass, I don't think it's got all the characteristics of team sport. From slide 99 onwards, it starts showing. It's still talking about how you can learn. So it says here you can learn from watching and watching others perform, but it starts getting into gaming as a spectator as opposed to gaming as a player. And it has there the hours streamed and the unique monthly streamers as a graph. And again, it's up and to the right. So the number of hours that players are streaming is getting more and more. And then obviously people stream because people are watching. And then the other side of it, that it talks about the fact that it teaches a lot of strong maths. But slide 100 dives in on the fact that fantasy sports has grown and grown and grown, and that has its ties linked back to gaming, and the fact that effectively the internet has enabled fantasy sport to grow, almost exponentially. There's a whole bunch of other stuff around what you can learn, but the pieces around from some pages 104 onwards starts talking about what we had in early gaming and now where we're seeing that on the internet. So a lot of things have deep roots in gaming, whether it be reputation and ranking, so having the top score on Space Invaders or Frogger. Now you see that, you have that top score on Airbnb, where you're nominated or recognised as a super host, or you're seeing that in LinkedIn and the like, when it says you've had this many profile views, you're very popular. So that reputation ranking piece is available. On 105, I love this, the physical badges you used to get for in-game achievements and the Activision 2600 games. We're seeing that now, digital badges on Facebook. Like, love, haha, wow, sad, angry. Like, they're just the same things. Same badges reapplied. Role-playing games. Now we're seeing Netflix, Amazon, Twitch experimenting with interactive shows. Netflix talking about doing a choose-your-own-adventure type of show. Different ways to do learning. Games always started as learning, and now we're seeing a whole bunch of apps doing leveling up and the gamification of their apps to get people to dive into the apps more and more often. Things like being able to download new content. You used to be able to do it on your Sega in 1993. Now you can do it with your Tesla. So there's a whole bunch of things that are being developed. Secondary markets that are being offered on top of. Now that's been a big thing in gaming with skins and secondary markets for currency and upgrading to get to new levels of games. And now we're seeing that with sticker packs and the like, that you can upgrade for multiple things. So there's some major things there that, especially where they're coming from, even to the point of TV, Madden Football providing unique game perspectives with cameras from behind the huddle, so you can see where the quarterback goes. That was in 1996 in a computer game, and now those camera angles are coming and they're available now in a lot of sports. But that's where they started, the different angles. So what I want to do then is what Mary think goes through then. Again, I'm reading this like it's my slides. I love these slides. Page 114 looks at daily minutes spent per user across select digital media platforms. So video gaming consoles, 51 minutes. Facebook, 50 minutes. King mobile games, 35 minutes. Snapchat, 30 minutes. Instagram, 21 minutes. So it's such an engaging form. And, in this case, Mary calls it social media. Again, do we want to debate whether it is a social media or not? But it's an engaging form of media, full stop. The mobile average of daily games on Unity games, again, up and to the right, 33% lift. I love this quote from Gary Whitta, a screenwriter from Rogue One, the latest Star Wars movie. He says on page 116, "When I play a video game, it's the only time I put away the phone and forget it exists. Video games command your attention in a way that nothing else can or will." That is super key. Now, I'm not a gamer, but I understand. I'm a marketer looking for people's attention. If video games have got the attention, where do you think the money's going to go? Video games, it literally just locks people in. We spoke earlier with Tom Halls talking about the esports space, and I'll get into the esports space stuff, but the engagement and the viewing times of both viewers and players is ridiculous. So where does gaming take us? Mary does go through some stuff around improving athlete performance, like where VR sort of sits to teach players plays, and the stuff that's being done around video analytics that we're seeing in the NBA with all the cameras in the stadium to track player movement and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff where gaming is sort of hitting that high performance space. But I'm not going to dive into more than that. But there is a lot of evidence both from football, soccer, as well as NFL. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I'm never going to get Zlatan's last name right. I stuff it up every time. But from the documentary I Am Zlatan, he goes, "I could play 10 hours a stretch playing soccer video games. I often spot solutions in games that have parlayed into real life." So they're playing these games, visualizing. It's very much a visualization and a strategy play. So there's a whole bunch of slide 128 gamification. For mine is still something that's sports is trying to figure out. But there's some really great examples of where gamification has worked, does work in apps, and where it's not the be-all and end-all of the app. I think that's where the gamification space is sort of not being done quite right in the sports space. Whereas, Duolingo, Acorns, Nest does it well. Bumble, I haven't used Bumble, but again, the gamification of these at MyFitnessPal is a good one that says, well to go, you've got the streaks, those kind of things. It's not the core part of the app, but as an add-on to better the user experience and also to give that app a little bit more stickiness. So there's just some of the, I guess, things around gaming. I think page 135 around where the gaming development tools and platforms are evolving. And so these are the development platforms. So to describe this to people listening, it sort of puts the developers on one side of one side of the slide and the players on the other side of the slide, but it puts the development platforms in the middle. So whether they be development platforms like Unity or Unreal Engine, or the VR AR platforms, or the in-game sandboxes, so building something in Minecraft, or the gaming marketplaces. And so this is the place where you want to be seeing what's happening in this space, who's doing development in these spaces, and what's being the adoption by the players, and where's the money sort of flowing. These will become marketplaces in their own rights. There'll be a lot of money flowing through, especially the gaming marketplaces, but then also there will be that battle for the VR, AR, who's going to win it? What's Apple's play going to be? Will Google respond? Will Microsoft on HoloLens be something that comes out? Where does Oculus fit? So that kind of that push and pull and struggle that's going to happen in this space is going to sort of start playing itself over the next couple of years. Are we going to have a Betamax VHS type of war? For those of you who don't remember what VHS and Betamax are, you're obviously much younger than me, but that's what videotapes, if you remember. And again, it just shows you how much this world has changed, where I'm talking about a tech that no longer exists, no longer is used, has been completely superseded via digital. So from page 137, esports now gets a mention. We're 137 pages in. And again, I'm sort of half checking the time, but I'm just going to keep going to let this one run out, hoping that I don't run out of battery and I don't run out of disk space while this records. So esports, I love the slide on page 138, which really outlines the 45-year evolution of the global stage. So 1972, Stanford Lab builds a gaming tournament, Space Wars. 1980, Space Invader competition comes out. So this is esports, not just the games, but the actual people competing using the games. So there's a Space Invader competition in 1980, which is when I was living in the US, living in Tennessee. As I think a 7-year-old, I don't remember that. 1998, Red Annihilation Quake tournament, and then year 2000, ESL starts up as the first esports leagues. Justin TV 2006 becomes Twitch, becomes a precursor to Twitch. 2009, League of Legends released. Just let that rest for a minute. League of Legends released 2009. Okay, it becomes one of the most played strategy games. Fast forward, 7 years later, League of Legends World Championship, 2016 World Championship, 43 million viewers. 7 years later, that's the growth. We'll be talking a lot about up and to the right with a lot of these esports graphics. So again, page 139 talks about League of Legends expands from home to Staples Center. 20,000 people in the stadium, 43 million people watching online. Now, then looking at, I love page 140 that looks at esports and sports, because there is, for the people that I do talk to about esports and sports, and there's very much a versus, they pretty much start thinking they're in one camp or the other, and they can't be both. And so there is, in this data here, where it says, do you significantly prefer your favourite esport, or do you significantly prefer your favourite traditional sport, or slightly prefer, or no preference? So there is a split, but there is people that say, yes, they can have both. So millennials have a significant preference to esports, and it's pretty split. 27% I'm in the esports camp, 27% I'm in the traditional sports camp, and millennials obviously are skewing more, non-millennials I should say, are skewing more to traditional sports at 45%. But it's not as cut and dried. And so I guess my takeaway, my glass half full for this, for the world of traditional sports, is it's not all in, one in. So there's a lot of fans that are in esports that still like traditional sports. And this also sort of shows this is a way potentially to do that brand reach, and this is why a lot of sports teams are getting into the space, which we'll go into later. Look at the esports monthly viewers. Again, as I sort of said, my conversation with Tom Halls, 40% year on year and accelerating. That's ridiculous. 58 million in 2012 monthly esports users. 161 million monthly viewers in 2016. 40% year on year. Up and to the right. League of Legends championship viewers, 90% year on year. 27 million in 2014, 36 million in 2015, 43 million in 2016. So, some absolutely key numbers. And then looking at where they are, again, looking at the demographic of them, 53% are in the 21 to 35-year-old age bracket. So that, again, and of that, I'm trying to do it, 29% overall are female. So it's, again, not completely dominated by male. So there are women watching, but it's a really attractive demographic. It's not as young as you might think. It's not as young as I thought. I'll put my hand up and say I did not know that number. I didn't think it would be that demographic. The money is flowing in. The prize pool for competitions is growing. And I think that the one that it should be of most interest to listeners and to people watching this video that are in the sports geek space is the partnership investments that are helping bring esports in. So we saw German Soccer Club, one of the first teams to get into the esports space. The guys at the Philadelphia 76ers with Ignitus have been early. Riot Games, BAM, doing the big deal around the League of Legends streaming. Miami Heat, Italian soccer clubs like AS Roma, the NBA's 2K. We're seeing the same here in Australia with the Adelaide Crows buying, name escapes me, Legacy. And the fact that Facebook is now diving into esports relationships. This is all tick, 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 making esports mainstream, which is why there is this buzz around, hey, can we get into the space? A couple of things to sort of wrap up the esports space. Slide 147. This quote is from 10 years ago. Brian Reeves, who's a professor of communication at Stanford, that talked about leadership. If you want to see what business leadership may look like in 3 to 5 years, look at what's happening in online games. So just for reference, this was said 10 years ago. And then look at quotes, and if you look at page 148, quotes of entrepreneurs that are fans of their gaming experience. I'll give you 3 names, and you can look up the quotes, and they'll be in the show notes. Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman. So Elon Musk is Tesla and SpaceX, if you don't know. Reid Hoffman is a co-founder of LinkedIn. and Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. Mark says, I do think this dynamic around kids growing up building games, playing games is an important one because I think it's how a lot of kids get into programming. I definitely would not have got into programming if I hadn't played games. So it's really critical. It has shaped the world that we now live in. So that gets me to page 150. And I've got a little bit to go because I really want to cover some of the stuff in the media space. And I'm going to do this a little bit quicker because media is just being completely disrupted. And where it fits, where it's important for sports is, again, as I sort of spoke about earlier, is how the media rights landscape is going to change. So first of all, Mary sort of goes into the streaming and how the streaming services has effectively started to stabilise. But then the next piece is around video, and page 154 talks about reasons for cord cutting. Too expensive. I use an internet streaming service. I use an antenna to get basic channels. I like to binge. So the way that people are consuming is changing the way the cable companies potentially will be run. So music, from a point of view, slide, the music industry has changed. In 2003, all revenue was physical, and now we're seeing 52%. Even more. 52% is streaming. 13 years ago, it was nothing. Spotify has won that war. So, again, talking graphs up and to the right. Subscribers and revenue for Spotify up and to the right. It is also driving more people consuming more content, more artists. Page 160, which is network TV's minutes delivered 2011 compared to 2016. This is the one that should and probably is keeping a lot of TV executives up at night. If we're looking at all the big players, NBC, Universal, Disney, 21st Century Fox, CBS, Time Warner, Viacom, Discovery, A&E, ESPN, all of them bar Discovery. Now, again, this is obviously US data and the like. All of them bar Discovery are down. Minutes are down. Where to be from 11%, 35%, 30%. ESPN, down 16%. Netflix, 5 years, from 2010 to 2011 to 2016. Netflix is up nearly 700%. That's where the minutes are going. It's gobbled up all the minutes and all the losses of every single network. And it's because the way the people are now consuming content and also the types of content they're consuming. So there's a whole bunch of stats around Netflix subscribers, the fact that Netflix and Spotify have changed the way people search for content, in the way that Google pioneered search, find, obtain for content and products. Netflix and Spotify pioneered search, find, and serve up for media. Made it easier for you to find it and easier for you to get to it. So it does sort of start at least putting sports in that space. Where does the OTT product come in? How does sport fit in that space? The old classic one, who's going to do the Netflix for sports? Again, who knows? It could be Amazon. Amazon recently bought some of those NFL rights with Prime. You don't know, but this is where the landscape is moving. So again, if you're looking at all the traffic in the video traffic, the one that I like around page 165 shows you Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat mobile video traffic share gain over the last 4 years. And you can definitely see from this graph, which is sort of just America, looking at platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Netflix, iTunes, Google Cloud, HTTP, other. YouTube, down. Facebook, up, double. Instagram didn't exist, up. Snapchat didn't exist, up. And so it's definitely the case. And as we've seen and heard from Facebook, Facebook is chasing video super hard, and it's doing it at the expense of YouTube. So it's that battle is going to keep coming. And Instagram and Snapchat are the same, sort of chasing that space. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. If you look at the monthly active users for all of the Facebook platforms, Facebook, WhatsApp, Messenger, Instagram, all moving at a ferocious pace up. Like we said earlier, just earlier today, Facebook passed 2 billion users. Video is driving a lot of that growth across all of those platforms. And one thing I did like on page 168, like I said, flying through this, was, creating original content for those platforms, whether it be Snap original shows that were listed here. I think I really liked, if I get it wrong, I think it was Beauty and the Beast. The Chicago Bulls doing a Snap story, sort of doing Beauty and the Beast, doing particular short-form content will be something that more and more fans want to consume. And so that, again, presents itself as an opportunity for sports teams. It's a generational media usage change. It's changing, and it's shifting to internet. So there's a whole bunch of stuff around device, digital analog, and pay TV and where that's moving. I think the main one is, the shows the media evolution, which is the network era, which was cater to everyone, high viewership, no personalization. You watched Star Trek, you watched the shows because they were the only ones on. Then so that was the 50s to the 80s, and the 80s to the 2010s were the cable era, when ESPN rose up, AMC, Showtime, they all built up broad genres, focus on programming, bundle choices, and now we're moving into the digital era. And again, this is the opportunity for sports to be a player in this space. So you're talking about things like Crunchyroll and Cheddar and YouTube Red and those kind of things, where they're just these small startup, just cater to their user base. That's effectively the play that MLB, BAM are doing. The success that WWE has had in this space. That OTT sort of option is potential for where sports may go, but it does make for a different landscape. And so, how does that affect the TV rights? Because it's been a big revenue for it. I'm going to quickly skip past a bunch of the other stuff. For my geek friends, there's a whole bunch of really good stuff around the cloud and the infrastructure spend and where that's moving. And then what I did find, again, if you listen to Mary Meeker's version of this, the stuff around the China internet and what's happening there is absolutely fascinating, especially the fact that they're moving so mobile first, mobile payments and micro payments, the fact that they're paying for live streaming, and doing a lot of things around the payment stuff. The mobile payment stuff is super fascinating, whether it be WeChat Pay or Alipay. The fact that people are just tipping authors, so potentially you might read an article and you'll tip them a cent. So I think that's super fascinating in the commerce space in China. And then in India, there's a real lot of space, the fact that they're all still coming online. So again, this is why China and India are real big focuses for the social networks and for particular sports. This is why you're seeing the bigger sports both in Europe and in the US targeting India, because they're large and growing internet base. One of the biggest players was Reliance Jio, bringing in a completely new network and charging far less. So it's driving down the price per gig, which is making the internet more affordable. And again, there's a lot of players in the space from an internet usage point of view. But because there's new players making it cheaper, then more people are getting online. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening in India. Some really smart stuff around the digital ID and identity stuff. So being able to create digital IDs so people can activate a SIM card in 15 minutes, not 3 days. They can open a bank account in 15 minutes, not multiple days. So a lot of that's been driven by the government setting up infrastructure for identity, banking, mobile services, and making India a real mobile first place. So stacks of stuff in that. If you want to dive in on how their media is changing, going from soap operas and reality shows to on-demand web video, that kind of thing. So again, it presents an opportunity if as they are consuming more content, potentially your content will be consumed more and more in India. So, that's the discussion I've had with Ted Johnson at the Timberwolves and Jen Van Dyke at the Clippers. Is there an opportunity to build a fan base in regions like India and China? Of course there is. So it's just a matter of understanding how they're consuming their content. And as they get more access to the internet, they'll want to consume more content. So there's a lot of good stuff. And yeah, I really suggest you listen to Mary Meeker's Code Conference YouTube clip. She dives into the India and the China stuff a lot deeper than I am. I didn't go through the health stuff myself. I'm not going to dive into that. And that's fast forwarding. Yeah. So then the last bit is just looking at where I guess the market is overall, in that how much it's dominated by tech, and how tech companies are driving at the top 5. Apple, Alphabet, which is Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, they're the top 5. And the fact that how much it's changed in the last 5 years, and the big are only getting bigger. So again, this presentation, this paper was produced before Amazon went and swallowed up Whole Foods, but also how much they're changing. Apple started in 1976; it was a personal computer maker. Now they make smartphones, computers, tablets. They are a media marketplace. They're changing all the time. They're not staying in the one place. They're a long way from where they started. So it does talk a lot about acquisitions and again effectively preempts the Amazon acquisition of Whole Foods, and some really good stuff around the US national debt and where it's going and where jobs are going. If you want to look at that, but her final slide was pretty much. This is a lot about what Steve Sammartino talks about in his book Great Fragmentation, and sort of his latest book now, which is The Lesson School Forgot, is really focused on this 21st century. So 18th century was cultivation and extraction. Then 19th century was manufacturing and industry. We're building a lot of factories. And the 21st is all about computing power and human potential and where technology is going to move in, where jobs are going to shift. And that's where, Steve's 2 books really cover this last slide really well. The Great Fragmentation sort of looks at the technological revolution and how it's kicked in, and his latest book, Lesson School Forgot, pretty much gives you the handbook to how can I tackle the world ahead. So that's it. I really hope this recorded okay, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't listened to the podcast before, normally I would interview someone, but like I said, I do consume and really love what Mary produces every year and the Kleiner Perkins team. So I thought I would do my version of it. If you haven't listened before, please listen to another podcast with a guest. So it's not just me. If you did listen to this for the first time or have listened to it, please let me know what you think of the format. I know I was pretty much talking my way through slides. So if you're walking along to work and trying to understand what I'm saying, apologies. I tried my best to describe it. Go to the show notes at sportsgeekhq.com and download them and potentially have a look. I can't recommend highly enough to download the presentation. Look over it yourself. You'll definitely find some info. I think what I'll probably do is put a few of my key slides into SportsBiz Slack and have a bit of a discussion in there because, there's just so much to dive in on. And I sort of know that the SportsBiz Slack community will love some of the conversations around it. So if you haven't joined, please do so at sportsgeekhq.com/Slack. And until next time on the Sports Geek Podcast, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Like the Sports Geek Podcast? Find us on facebook.com/sportsgeek. Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at sportsgeekhq.com/clients. Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.